Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, Chuck, how's it going today?
Hey, Brian, it's going well. How are you doing?
Oh, I am doing great. It's a short week here in the States, right? So we're
Mhm.
cramming in as much as we can in 3 days.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular. I think I'm getting the vibe that like everyone is just like put doubling down on the energy level, trying to get ready and get everything done before the holidays. So lots of interesting stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, I spent the morning cramming together a blog post as quickly as possible, so we'd have it for when we get back from the holidays. So that
Right
was
on.
fun.
Nice. Yeah, without giving too much away, we're baking up some an interesting little coding challenge that we should be talking about a little bit more next week. So after the
Yeah,
holiday, so lots
after
of
the
lots of fun things coming up.
Yeah, exciting to talk about some of them too. And so, for those of you who are unaware, this is just a little casual chat with your friendly neighborhood DevRels here at Algolia, where we can talk about some of the things that are happening inside the company, some new features, some new and improved things coming out. We'll demo a couple things today, as well as taking any questions from chat and from folks that are looking to get their Algolia questions answered. So I figured we can dive in a little bit, right, Chuck?
Sure, yeah. And as we get started, always feel free to just even jump in and say hi, tell us where you're from, all of that good stuff in the chat. So
Exactly.
right on.
So we've got three things I think on the list over here that I've got
Hmm.
to talk about Algolia related, not necessarily code, but I figured we can start by talking about the CSV importer a little bit, right? Because I
Hmm.
don't know how much there is to demo on that, but I think it's a huge improvement, a quality of life improvement in our events ingestion flow, right?
Yeah, I mean this is kind of an exciting new thing in the data ingest world, right? So for folks that have used Algolia Insights, um, historically our analytics APIs were very much real time, very much data forward, which is makes a lot of sense, right? We want to collect event information um, as people are real time kind of interacting with your site, but it made it really hard to kick the tires on things. It made it really hard to kind of like kind of retroactively put stuff, bring recommendations, bring some of the AI driven features into Algolia. So this is a really interesting kind of change that's been made where you can now import historical data, historical event data into Algolia using a CSV file. So if you can get the data into a CSV format, you can extract it out of you know Google Tag Manager or whatever sort of analytics tool you're already using, and bring it over into Algolia, so that essentially you can kind of catch up to where you were and then do the real time ingestion from there. So it's a really good tool for sort of coming online with some of the more interesting AI driven features like recommendations, um, or recommend, um, AI based ranking, right? All of the kind of the cool things that we can do with this data, without having to sort of say, okay, just turn on analytics and wait a month.
Yeah, because we're impatient as a species as a whole, right? Humans are impatient, but I think developers may be even more impatient. We want to go ahead and see our code working, and we can't see our code working if we have to wait 30 days for analytics to catch up, right?
Mhm.
So
Right.
yeah,
And
this ability to bring in historical data. I mean, honestly, on the DevRel side, it's helpful. We can make demos a lot easier this way.
yes, absolutely. So, I mean, that's been kind of a huge challenge for us just to show off all of these cool features, needing to sort of have a really strong amount of data, particularly for the ones that are machine learning driven, right? Those are the ones where, if anyone who's ever trained a machine learning model, you need a significant pile of data just to train the model. And then over and above that, right, you still need to keep a little bit of a side for validation and all of the other things to kind of make sure that the model's doing what you expect it to do.
Yep.
So this really kind of allows you to sort of grab that data from an existing data source. Now, this isn't we still need the data on the Algolia side, right? Part of our speed is being able to make those decisions as close to the the search or as close to the recommendation as possible. So we still need to get that stuff in, and you still need to kind of have a go forward strategy to make sure that that data continues to go into our machine learning, our AI systems. but this goes a long way to get you bootstrapped into it.
No, absolutely. And I think like really the first thing it even says here, right? Alternative way of capturing events. Capturing events through the API is important. It's still important because that's a continuous thing, right? An upload of a CSV is a one-time event. You want this to be happening on the regular so that the model is always as up to date as possible. So I like that that's called out. I mean, we might want to like make that italics or something like that because one time is not what a machine learning algorithm make. But yeah, there are some things to think about in this. It is a beta feature. It is new, so you do want to like exercise care. But the nice thing is, for the most part, you're not going to be using this if you're already up and running with Recommend or any of our AI features. So going and testing out a beta feature like this, no big deal. Few things. You've got to have a CSV file that's less than 100 megabytes. Probably okay for some simple data. Each row needs to be a single event, and then that needs to be tied to an object ID in your index. And then you've got timestamps enough to cover that 30-day period. And then there's a whole bunch of other things that you got to make sure you've got a user token, the timestamp, your object ID. Basically, this doc here and posted over in chat helps you kind of format what you need and kind of go from there, including like what kind of date time you need, because we all love working with dates and times.
Right. Now, one thing you'll notice as you look at the fields there is one thing that you can't provide as part of this sort of batch import is query IDs, right? So there's not going to be a mechanism to tie these events back to queries. So if you're doing things like, like re-ranking, where, essentially you want to understand that this was the object that was clicked on from this particular search, it looks like this is not going to be the tool for that. But for anything where you're just sort of looking for particularly like conversion events, right, where you want to see that an object was actually the thing that was purchased and things like that, then you can kind of start collecting that information. But I do think it's interesting here. So it looks like we can't retroactively hook this into a existing query ID. So that's just one thing to keep in mind here. Maybe something we'll see going forward.
Yeah, I'd be curious to find out kind of more on the thought process. There might be some security concerns, or there might be some sort of like data protection concern there. Just making sure everything is solid and good to go. But you can also take these things out of your Google Analytics through BigQuery, and we've even got this kind of sample SQL script that you could put in there and grab some information for that historical. You don't have to make it up. You can go grab actual information, which is always helpful to have.
Yeah, that's great for working with your BI team, right? Because as far as BI folks are concerned, if there's not a SQL statement, it doesn't exist. So very good to kind of have that pre-baked.
What's this NoSQL thing? No. It's got let's do Postgres. Let's do the real stuff, right?
Right. So yeah, this is a really interesting feature, I think. And I think, again, it's a beta. There's some limitations on it. But if you have been put off by using some of the higher level features because of the need for collecting this event information, or wanting to kick the tires on it, this is a great opportunity to kind of grab some test data, throw it in, and start playing around, see what sort of impact it has on your search results.
Yep, and a lot of that is going to be in the Algolia Recommend product as well. So like, let's bring this over here. You definitely need those events for Recommend, but it's also inside of our search product as well in terms of some of the more event-driven things. Like there's what is it, AI re-ranking is a part of that, and all these features require data.
Personalization.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that sort of it kind of leads to a larger conversation, which is to really be getting the full advantage of Algolia. You need to have some sort of strategy for collecting event information, for getting some of this data around how users are live interacting with your search, discovery, and recommendation that you've built into your application. That is where you'll be able to sort of take advantage of things like AI re-ranking, take advantage of things like personalization, start getting really good data back for things like A/B testing, right? If you're making changes to the way ranking occurs and you want to kind of see what impact that has on user journey, you've got to be collecting that event data.
Yep. So that is one of the new things. I think that's a pretty exciting thing that lets us, like I said, talk more about Recommend, play more with Recommend, show off these awesome AI features that we've got, these machine learning models that we've got. I think that's gonna make it so much easier to get involved with. And I think that's anything we can do to help users and help our developer community get into these new features quicker is just a huge win overall.
Oh yeah. I mean, hands up if you're comfortable just like reading the docs and sort of saying, yeah, that seems good, right? No, you gotta kind of sit down and kick the tires on it yourself and build something. That's
Yep.
what we do.
Yep. And like with search, it's really easy to come up with a little bit of data to play with, right? You can throw together, a relatively easy JSON array. You can go use your existing blog. You could go like scrape one of our data sets we already have.
Oh yeah.
But event-driven stuff, way harder to get good information. I would never want to make that up on the fly, right? I can make up good search result data on the fly. Getting good events, I think, is a tougher nut to crack on that.
Oh yeah. I mean, anyone who's tried to generate sort of random user information, even, right? Like you can use randomizers to a certain extent, but to test real use cases, to really test edge cases, you need to have something that looks or at least smells like real data.
Yeah, it needs to be close enough because again, it's a model being trained. And in fact, if you were not to go back and put a whole bunch of real data in, that model would be pretty worthless probably for your real data going forward. So I think having as close to your live data as possible without that 30-day headache of having to wait is a game changer for our AI models.
Yeah, I mean, a little inside baseball.
Mm.
Even our teams, when we're going to try and sort of demo some of the machine learning, some of the AI-driven features, the challenge that we have is someone will build a really good demo with some really interesting sort of recommendations. You click on a jacket and it shows you a scarf that goes with it, or a scarf and a hat, or whatever. But almost as soon as you surface that URL, people start showing it off. They start doing random clicking in it and immediately like impacting that data and changing those results. So
Yep.
we understand, we feel the pain of like really trying to get a good understanding of like, what powerful recommendations are, what powerful personalization is, really takes like, actual user journeys, like real concrete user journeys through your site.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, I couldn't help but like cackle because I am probably one of the worst offenders about ruining event style data, just because when somebody presents me with a UI, I click all the things.
Go
I
start
want to
clicking.
see everything in action. Yeah. And so like it's just the absolute worst that like those clicks, right? Those people testing are just poisoning the data.
Yep.
So, yep.
Yeah. Unless like you put the whole thing on rails and it's like you're only allowed to
Mhm.
click if you click these things in this order, but that's not our human nature. So
Yeah, exactly. And then you can't prove that, oh yeah, this is actually happening with the machine model learning. No, like you coded this specifically to do that. But yeah, we can't help ourselves. We're explorers by nature.
Yep. But at the same time, like it shows like the almost magic, right? When it is working, like when you're on a live site that is collecting that event data and the model is adapting and seeing those changes in dynamics, right? I can only imagine. I'd love to talk to a customer that's like, is active with recommend, and like it's particularly like thinks like someone who's like selling clothing and during a seasonal
Mhm.
change, right? Now that coats and hats and scarves are starting to come into play, and like seeing like the recommend models picking up on that and starting to sort of layer those into categorization. That's just got to be magical. I would love to hear someone's like real-time journey through that.
Yeah, and like yeah, the whole concept of not having to go in and change your non-dynamic rankings, right? Like the
Hmm.
fact that you might want to be promoting certain things on certain search queries, right? And during the summer, like you said, it's completely different than if you're looking for winter hats and winter coats and that sort of thing. And the headache of having to go and change all of that, why wouldn't we pass that off to the machine? Like, why wouldn't we make that happen as searches begin to shift? And you can't necessarily predict that across, like, let's just say you're mostly e-commerce in the US, right? Or Northern Hemisphere, I suppose. You can't necessarily predict the exact time when the weather like that first cold night happens and people
Hmm.
think, oh no, my winter jacket from last year is gone. It's like, it's been destroyed in some way. Like I need a new one. You can't predict that. But if the first few people start doing that, the machine learning model can predict that. The event-driven data can predict that. And so it just makes that sort of thing happen much faster, and I think probably much more cleanly and without that human interaction that means that we're forgetful.
Yeah.
Don't have to put a sticky note on your monitor to remember that anymore.
I am so freaking guilty of like, I've had coats for one season too long because like the zipper will break and I'll be like, oh my gosh, you know, I'll just wait till the end of the season and I'll get it replaced in the off season. And then you don't think about it again until you go pull that code out of the storage.
Exactly. Well, and the worst part is you might think about it a little bit in spring, right? You put it away and you're like, I'm gonna go look for it now, but all the coats are gone. All the winter coats are out of inventory. So
and all the people in San Francisco and on the West Coast are just laughing at us right now. I'm in Ohio.
Michigan.
Bryan's in Michigan. So
let me zip up a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm sure all of you folks are just like, oh, coats. Look at you poor souls.
What's that? I just need a light hoodie. I'm inside and I need a light hoodie. So
yeah. Well, speaking of building, we had a really fun live coding session last week, right? Where we did a bunch of live coding of GitHub Actions.
Yeah.
And we have promised that, you know, we're going to release some of that stuff out. We did get some of the stuff out into GitHub, but I think that's part of the stuff that we're kind of working on when we're not doing the stream is getting the blog post out. So there will still be a blog post on that.
Can we? You think we should demo it? I have it available for a demo.
Yeah, we can show it off because there's definitely been some polishing since the last time we did the live coding. I think we definitely brought that one in hard. We were like right up against the line. We had something that was working, but you've done some additional refinements and you've learned some cool things about building actions, right? Or workflows.
Yeah, no, totally. There's been a whole lot that's kind of, it's been a huge learning process. I'd only ever made like a hello world action, and Chuck, I'm pretty sure it was similar in your case. So that 2-hour stream was still a very educational thing, and we had set things up in a way that totally worked, but was actually let me pull this up real fast. We can actually take a look at the actions and we can see them get better. So back here, this is one of the last actions we had during the stream. Confirm, and then we did some work after that, but you can see it was taking like 45 seconds, 44 seconds, 50 seconds, and that's fine. But nowadays they take 15 seconds and 16 seconds, and then something happened with this one I don't want to talk about. I don't know. But most of them are taking containers. 15 or 16. Yeah, containers. They probably couldn't find one. But yeah, they are taking literally like a third of the time now, and that's because we refactored it a little bit. I did a personal stream where I just kind of was cleaning up some of this. And Jacob Bolda, at Jacob Bolda on Twitter, I think, was there and was like, why do you have these as individual jobs? Is there something that I'm missing that you need that for? Absolutely not. We just made them that way. Yeah, exactly. And so I refactored all of that into steps instead of jobs. And so now instead of having to find 3 containers to run 3 different jobs, we find 1 container, and that drastically makes it faster. And except for when GitHub decides not to give me one and it takes a minute. But
and for those that watched the live stream, you saw that we spent a lot of time struggling to like to take outputs from one step and throw them into like the events space and then import them into the next job. Do not need to do all that if it's just in a single job. We had no idea of the scoping of each of the individual levels within a workflow.
Yeah. And it still might be nice to do things in different jobs because the jobs are asynchronous, but that was the other thing we had to battle, right? We had to make sure that we ran it synchronously. Otherwise the comment wouldn't have the issues, and then all sorts of things. So let's walk through it real fast. So this is a GitHub issues search bot, and it's being done for, and I didn't pull it up and I totally should have, the dev.to GitHub Actions hackathon that's running for the next couple of weeks. And it's meant to have a whole bunch of helpful maintainer must-haves, or they've got a couple other categories too. But we put some thought into like what we wanted to build for maintainers, and this kind of floated to the top as an interesting idea. And so this is an idea where if you have a big open source repository of some sort, and you're getting lots of issues and lots of people talking about similar things, you can't quickly get to them. They might get upset about that, right? And so this is a way of saying, hey, there are similar things happening that might help you with your issue, or might be something that has already been talked about and closed and fixed. You just need to upgrade. So the way this works is that a user can come in and they can leave an issue just like they normally would. So we'll say like there's a type error with React instant search, and I'm gaming the system a little bit here because I know that there are good results for this, right? But that's a fairly standard kind of thing, right? There's a type error. I don't understand what that means. I might put, my error is here and have a whole bunch of stuff down there. But I submit this new issue, and hopefully GitHub will give us a container super fast for the demo. But we're just going to sit here for a second, and then we'll go see what happened in the actions. But theoretically, in about 15, 16 seconds, we're going to have a comment on this directly from the GitHub bot that's going to outline 3 additional issues that kind of match up with what, oh, there it is. While you wait, here are related issues. I'm getting a type error in React Instant Search. A type error happens in React Instant Search. There's an issue with Instant Search for React. So that third one's not even a type error, but we get to see these pulling in along the way. And so what's actually happening behind the scenes, and what we mostly built on stream last week, was this get related issues job. So we do some simple stuff that we don't have to worry about, right? GitHub sets up the job for us, gets whatever OS we told it to. In this case, it's just like the latest Ubuntu. And then it runs these 3 tasks, these 3 steps. And the first of which is this action that's in my personal GitHub account, Algolia issue search. It's available in GitHub's Action Marketplace. Obviously, it's a free thing. It's here just for this one specifically, actually. We pass it our app ID, which is our Algolia app ID, our API key. This is the search-only API key, an index name, and in this case, we're passing it the repo name, and then the issue title, which we're saying there's a type error, that issue that I just created in the issue section, and max results equals 3. That's an optional configuration step where you could get 1 or you could get 5 or whatever makes the most sense for your repository. It then does a search against our Algolia index, which is populated from our issues, and then it returns the 3 top hits for our query. And then it formats it into one of 2 things. There's a default comment, which has a little headline, and then there's also a list of markdown links that can then be passed to our second step, which is Peter Evans's create or update comment, which is just, he's got it out there. It's actually it's like very canonical, right? It's GitHub uses this in like their how to make a comment documentation. So we're just using it too. It passes these 2 sets of strings into that, and then we use that to comment on the issue. And then the third step is add Algolia Record, which is a new action from the one and only Chuck Meyer that takes, what was it take, Chuck? It takes a JSON string, right?
So basically what it does is you build out, you hook into an Algolia index, and then you create the JSON, like a string that is the JSON of the record that you want to add in. And that needs to follow Algolia's recommendations for how to build that out. So it's schemaless JSON. You probably want an object ID in there. But yeah, as long as it's valid JSON, we can inject that in as a record in the index. And the other cool thing it does, I don't think we have we're not looking at the workflow itself, but you can tell it what index to put that record in.
Yes.
Right. So if you have multiple repos, you could have multiple indices, 1 per repo, and be able to pull the appropriate thing out based on the repository where the issue or the pull request or whatever reason you're using this is. And I think that's an important thing to sort of point out about this is that the 2 new actions that we sort of built out of this, which are the search action that Bryan wrote and the add record action that I wrote. We designed them to be as abstracted as possible. So that's why Bryan sort of has, brings back the results both as a list and as sort of a pre-formatted message, because you can use this in a lot of different contexts. It doesn't have to be just like this issue recommendations. You could do it around pull requests. You could do it around what other sort of pieces of it. You could drill down in on comments, right? And sort of build out particular comments or track the index the values of comments within a particular issue. All sorts of kind of cool things you can do that are sort of meta flows for GitHub itself. And you could even get, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say you could have this be a more manual process too, where you could have a maintainer put a label on something that says like get related or something like that, and it could run this. And so you could basically check through all comments that have like that get generated, and then each comment could check against that label and then run this based on that and get the initial issue as well.
My brain's running now. You could literally create an index based on something within the repository itself, right? You could have something that reads through the repository, pulls data out of it, builds an index, and then uses that to populate a comment. It could be a checklist, right? It could be any number of different things that's all driven directly by content within the repository itself. There's so many use cases here.
Yeah, no, that there's, yeah, again, like the mind continues to run, but initial scope, we actually this is up and running. Both these are in the marketplace. The blog post that is in the editing process now is going to walk through basically how to set this up on your own repository, as well as a little bit of the thought process behind it, and the links to all the different marketplace items as well. But it's really, really interesting, and we can take a look at the workflow setup as well, just so we've got that. It's just, this is a very simple repository. It's mainly just here for issues and this workflow file, related issues.yaml. And basically all it's doing is it's running this one job. It sets up the write permissions just on issues so that this bot can write to the issues, and then runs those steps. And you give them an ID, and we pass in all of the different variables that you need. And you can see here, just like Chuck mentioned before, for the index name, it's configurable. You could put this as just a string, but we're actually saying whatever repository the event happened on inside of GitHub, grab the name of that, and that will be the index name. And the same with the title, we're passing that in. But if you needed to like build it from, if you need to build the search query basically off of something else, you absolutely could at that point. You could piece together a string from any number of components there. And then we're using the creator update comment from Peter Evans and passing that. You can see I'm kind of templating that to have this H1, the issues list, and then some sort of postscript, right? Anything I need it to be in terms of a string or markdown can go in here. There could even, you could put a checklist in there too. You could put another bolded list that's like, additionally, have you also tried these things?
Right.
Which might be nice. And then, yeah, again, we're going to then add that record into Algolia. We do that as the last step so that we don't have to worry about like
redundancy.
We would get an exact match on this, right? if we searched after we put the record in, we'd have to dedupe that. We'd have to remove that record from the search. So this runs last just to make sure we don't have to worry about that. But it could run whenever, really, as long as you don't mind dealing with the repercussions.
Yep. And obviously there's a few sort of things to think about as far as permissioning. As Bryan said, for the flow itself, you need those write permissions to the issue to add the comment. On the Algolia side, if you want to add these records, you're going to need a key that has add record permissions or add object permissions for your index. If you want it to be able to generate that index itself based on the repo name, you'll need the ability to create indices, or you'll have to manually build it and hard code it in here. So just a few things to consider. Those will all be in the blog post. All of these repos are public right now. And that actually leads me to my next point, Bryan, which is I have just a small bone to pick with you. If you don't mind, do you mind popping up the repo for your Algolia issue search?
Maybe. Let's see. Let me go to my repositories real fast. Algolia issue search.
Yeah, there we go.
Here it is.
Cool.
I'm now nervous.
Right on.
Here we go.
So it's looking good. You guys can see we've got these wired into the action, so you can actually find it in the action library and all of that good stuff. Look at how many stars you got there, Bryan.
I have a lot of stars, Chuck. That's amazing. I have 3 stars.
On. Let's look at the add Algolia record. The
I know where this is going.
Algolia record.
I know where this is going. All right.
Yeah, I wonder where this is going. I
can't imagine.
I am not a shy flower here. I am. Thank you, Bryan.
I was hoping maybe I did it quick enough that you wouldn't even notice. There
That's
it is.
all I ask.
There's a star.
Aw, that feels
who
just makes me feel good. Just makes me feel
who
good.
else started
Bryan,
mine though?
I hope it's the people that were on your live coding session.
Oh, I
Let's
suppose
see.
that's I
No, you've
don't
just
know
got
who
some
these
people who
people are.
like what you're doing there, man.
Artemis Corp by night life. Okay,
Right on.
interesting.
People
Yeah,
like your action. That's great.
who knew? The funny thing is yours is way more applicable to way more scenarios, right? The add Algolia record lets you just put a JSON blob into your index. This specifically spits back Markdown. You can
I th
only use it in Markdown situations.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting. I mean, like, I think a lot of people have built actions around adding to indices. It makes sense when you're, building static sites and all sorts of different things. Now, most of them, when I was out there doing my due diligence,
Yeah,
they are used to like picking it up from a file, right? So pick up
yeah,
from a file in your repo and then just do a bulk import. So that's the one unique piece, is that it's adding an individual record. But I do think that searching within an action is something that people haven't really thought about yet. I think that's the thing that made this really interesting.
yeah.
And so I can see why you're getting more stars on it. It's, I'm not, I'm still going to ask you for a star, but I'm not surprised that you're getting more stars.
Well, and I think in the end, I mean, that was probably also just from the fact that I did it on another live stream, but and also we live coded mine, don't forget.
That's true.
And so that, I think actually one of those names is very familiar from that initial live stream. I could be wrong about that though. But they're both decently documented. We both have the all the different requirements and the outputs and all that good stuff. They're MIT licensed, and they're available for whatever you really need. So I'll toss both these in.
If you are going to participate in the hackathon, the action hackathon, or if you're writing an action of your own, you could do worse than to model yours after Peter Evans.
Yeah.
So once we saw his the update comment, we really just the documentation, we followed the same model. We're using the same. If you can see, like, each of our actions actually has workflows in it to pick up dependencies and to build out the I guess, what do you call it? Compiled version. I'm still used to still learning this JavaScript world, but like the compiled JavaScript, that's the flattened version of your index.js file.
With all the dependencies brought together and mashed in. Yeah.
Which is incredibly important for building actions.
Yes,
is getting
because
that
we made that
file.
mistake many times in building it. Oh, I forgot to run npm run package. Whoops.
So yeah, so definitely check out any of the ones that Peter has done. Or if you want to use ours as a model too, but Peter's has definitely got more testing in it, to be perfectly honest.
Oh yeah, yeah. Ours is completely and utterly non-tested, but it could be.
I mean, it's manually tested. We have not automated our testing.
And anyone who like, I wish this hackathon were before Hacktoberfest. Then we could be like, this is a great place to start your testing stuff. Go write some tests for these repositories. Get it.
Well, I'm going to go and do mine. I feel like I need to get better at building out my testing chops. So, but he's got some really clever ways of doing it. He does it through, rather than using jest, he does it through the workflow itself. So the workflow actually goes and attempts to use the action in different ways, and then sends notification or fails the workflow essentially if the tests fail. So it's kind of interesting. Like, if you look at his jest configuration, it's just a return okay on no tests. And then all the testing actually occurs within the workflow itself.
Yeah. Validate dist file, update dependencies, test command, /command dispatch. I don't know what that does. But
so he actually, there's a slash style interface that this is just a piece of. So there's actually a larger set of actions that Peter's written that allows you to do like slash style commands, which I know you're a big fan of, like essentially like
I am.
Contextual commands within your issue. So.
Yeah, no, totally. That's always like, anything that you can do around that is always super fun and super powerful. You surface all sorts of stuff. That's cool. I didn't realize this was actually part of a bigger set of workflows.
Oh yeah, pretty neat.
Yeah. So that's what Chuck and I worked on last week live on stream, and like we've said a couple times, blog post is incoming. It's in the editing process right now to make sure that we didn't.
I saw the PR. I didn't even write. I
we
saw
do.
the PR.
We do our blog posts via a private repository so that we can do edits and see all that kind of come through, because we're devs, and even when we're writing, we're still devs. And it's markdown, which means that we can manipulate it however we need to later on. Maybe at some point we'll have to write some sort of secondary blog post about how we work in that way. But there's a couple other things to talk about this week.
Heck
too.
Yeah.
We've got a DocSearch update, and we've got the new demos UI, both of which I think are really interesting. So let us know in chat if you're interested in one specifically over the other. Which one are you more interested in, Chuck?
I mean, so what folks might not know about me is that my journey with Algolia started with DocSearch, like so many others. And so, you know, my very first time using Algolia was building out a documentation site using DocuSaurus and integrating in DocSearch for the search and being like, wow, that was freaking easy and it's super fast. So I'm a DocSearch fanboy from way back. So I'm really excited about the changes to DocSearch, and I'm very excited to talk about that.
Well, I would absolutely love to hear you nerd out about it, to be honest. So we have this page.
So for those, and I'd also love to see like a show of hands. I know we've got a few folks watching. If you came in through DocSearch too, if you have any opinions about it. But for those who don't know DocSearch, DocSearch is a program, and I apologize. It is Thanksgiving week here, which means the kids are home. So you're going to hear a little bit of shouting in the background as they get their snacks and become less hangry.
Yes.
But anyway, so DocSearch is a program sponsored by Algolia that provides you with Algolia-powered search against your open source documentation or blog project.
Or technical blog, exactly.
Or technical blog. So if you support an open source project that has public documentation, or if you have a blog that is associated with an open source project, or within that technology space, you can reach out to us, tell us what you do, and get approved for this DocSearch program. And once you're approved for the program, what happens sort of in the abstract is we point a crawler at or a scraper at your website with some configuration that you provide, and we crawl your site and we build indices for you. And then you can plug into that index in your front end. And a lot of sort of open source documentation frameworks, DocuSaurus being one of them. I see that little DocuSaurus dinosaur sitting up there in your tab bar.
You gave me links. I pulled up links in my browser. I got them.
So that's actually a blog post on the DocuSaurus side talking about how you do the conversion specific to DocuSaurus. But it's super easy. In most of the cases, you just plug in API keys and an app ID, and you're off to the races. You have search on your site. Now, the things that were challenging about DocSearch when I was setting it up were one, the configuration. It was centralized, first of all. So every site that we indexed was all indexed into a single application. If you've used Algolia, like applications are sort of our core root scoping, right? So nothing hits the edges of an application, but essentially we were just doing multiple indices within a single application. So every DocSearch user was using the same app ID and just had an individual index. And your configuration was done by literally checking a file into a repository. There was, I think, a DocSearch-config or configure repo within Algolia. And so it's just a flat file. You had to configure your piece and send it to us. And then we did the rest. We had a scraper that was custom written just for DocSearch. We'd pull all that stuff out. It would run at intervals. I remember that very, very, very long 24 hours from the time I dumped my first configuration in, and I was just dying to see that first iteration of it.
This goes all the way back to our first topic, where it's like, let's make it so that developers don't have to wait to start playing.
Gosh. Right.
Let's get rid of that wait period.
Right. So have very strong memories of all of that. Well, a lot of that is changing with this new version of DocSearch v3. So the core things that are changing is every DocSearch user is going to have their own application. So you will have, once you are approved for the program, your own application ID. If you're migrating over from the last version of DocSearch, you'll be given they'll be sent an email. You probably already have it with an app ID for it. And you will have a UI now for configuring your scraper. And the reason for that is we are retiring the dedicated DocSearch scraper, and we are moving all DocSearch users over to the Algolia web crawler. So this is the same web crawler that premium users can pay for and use for their premium sites. You'll be getting it as part of DocSearch. And crawler has its own UI that is very secure and requires Bryan to look at his phone. But it allows you to sort of have a UI for configuring your crawler, and even better for doing things like requesting recrawls, right? For making on-the-fly changes, and for doing a lot of things that you had to reach out to Algolia for under DocSearch, right? Because I'll be honest with you, when I waited for my first crawl, I had misconfigured something, and so I missed that first crawl, and I had to go change it and wait again.
Wait 24 hours again. No,
I know. So this gives you a lot more control to kind of go in and configure that crawler and request recrawls and all of that, which is awesome. And what it does for us is it allows us to unify our crawling capabilities. So now all of our focus is on making the Algolia web crawler better, both for our paid customers that have purchased the crawler, and for our DocSearch customers that are using it for open source. So I think it's super awesome on many levels. It gives a lot more power to DocSearch users, gives you a lot more capabilities. It brings you into the Algolia ecosystem proper. You have an app ID, which means you can start using some of the more advanced features around ranking and slicing and dicing your data. If you grab the H2s when you really meant to grab the H3s, being able to reconfigure that and re-index on the fly, all the way down to being able to sort of pivot how you're ranking. Are you doing chronological? Are you ranking records based on some sort of internal value? You can do all that stuff now. So this is huge. I think this is amazing. And I think that the DocSearch program is amazing too. So highly encourage anyone who's participating in an open source project or doing anything within that space. Even if you have a site that covers a really interesting open source space, like I know Bryan loves Jamstack stuff, reach out to us because we want to make sure that you have excellent search. And we believe that the way to get excellent search is to use Algolia. We're a little biased.
Truth. Yeah, and the thing about it is, especially like that technical blog side of things is relatively new. It's only been available for technical blogs for a few months, I think, like 4 or 5 months. And it's really any technical blog. It doesn't have to concern open source. Really, we just want we want it to help devs do what devs do. And in this case, it's making open source stuff or just writing about what they do. We want to make sure that it's as easy for them to get these advanced features as possible. So do apply if you are looking for search for your technical blog or for the documentation for your open source project. Any documentation for open source really will shine in search. Because devs really want to get directly to the piece that they're looking for. And the great thing is we crawl and get the section headers, and we allow that the search UI to jump you down the page to a section header. So if you've got 3 different parameters on one method, and a person searches for one of the parameters, we'll actually be able to jump them down on a page. You don't have to have a separate page. So there's a lot of like nice little affordances for dev users built into the way DocSearch works.
Oh yeah, straight into a code example, whatever is most relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, sort of tangential to that, if you do run a site like that and you're looking for some suggestions or some ways to improve your search on your site, Bryan and I love going through sort of websites with folks and sort of ideating. I hope I said that. Yeah, ideating.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
On like ways to boost, to turbocharge search capabilities. So
not
whether
just
you're
search,
using
but discovery of everything that's possible on your site.
That's true. And that's where a lot of it comes from, is like thinking about how to improve recommendations, how to sort of get people, get devs to whatever they need faster. Really is just kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have about 10 minutes left, just a little over 10 minutes. And I do want to make sure that we show off the new UI builder a little bit.
Yeah.
I also want to make sure that there's plenty of space if anyone has any questions about Algolia in general, about DocSearch, about our GitHub action stuff, about the new data ingest for events on CSVs for that bulk first time import. Do post over in chat to let us know if you have any questions about any of that, or again, general Algolia, or even just, technical questions. We're happy to talk about those.
Yeah, especially as we get closer to the holidays, we're thinking less about work and more about, what our favorite food's going to be next week. So
that's true. I'll answer that kind of question. I'll talk about the fact that I'm not even having turkey this week, so it's fine.
Yeah. So, and also, things we try and do this every Tuesday if we can. So let us know what sort of things you want us to talk about in future episodes. And if you don't get us here, you can catch us, on the socials. We've got our Twitter handles there, BRob and Chuck M. So you can jump in, talk to us on Twitter, comment if you see this on YouTube, drop a comment on it there, and let us know, because we're always looking. This is just a casual.
Yep. So I thought that I would showcase the new UI demo builder. And this is a feature that's just in the dashboard. You can generate these things and you can actually share them with your team if you're looking to showcase some of the things that Algolia can do. I showed off with one of my indices, which is my developer content, YouTube content index. And this is an amalgamation of a whole bunch of different channels, all funneling into to this index. And I haven't used the UI demos on it yet. And there was an old interface for this, and it worked. It worked fine. There's some new helpful affordances inside the new UI demos area. You can see we even have. It's not new. We've always had UI demos, but it is now improved. So let's go into that. So you click on this tab. It's inside of your app, inside of your search, and then inside of one of your indices. And you can see I'm pretty bad, and I've got way too many indices here in this one application. That is still an unnamed application, because that's how I decided to roll on this one. But we can go ahead and get started. And it's automatically going to create its best guess at what a search interface could be on this. And this one, I've got YouTube video descriptions, titles, thumbnails, tags, channel name, and a few other pieces of data. And so all that's available, and we can go through a quick UI to actually build out an experience. But first, we've got I can test against, live stream. And you can see we update down here. We could look for React tutorials. Allow Learn with Jason on React.
And this is using a lot of your index configuration, right? This is sort of built off of the attributes that you're displaying and the things that you're using for relevance.
Yep. And that's all. Yeah, that's it. This is purely vanilla in terms of the UI builder. Everything's coming from the attributes and the searchable attributes inside, and the ranking and all that from inside of my configuration. So a lot of great React content there. I wonder if we've got any instant search. Hey, look, instant search, because Algolia's YouTube channel is in here. So there's some other things you can do around here. You could add a logo. You can change this big background image, really kind of give it your own little spin. But what I actually really enjoy is you can create filters on the fly as well. So we can add a filter. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do here. I'm going to create a menu, and I'm going to say channels, because there are multiple channels inside this index. And then I can select the main attribute that I want for it. And I want channel title. And it gives you a quick preview of what it might look like. And then I can decide how many by default I want to display. And then it has a show more functionality that we can also do. Let's pull up the top 10 and make sure that there's the show more. And that's fine.
What I love is, you can do a search across these too, which is really nice.
So now we have that pulling in. So if I'm like, okay, show me all Algolia videos. Here they are, Traversy Media, and this is a one-off, right? They don't build on each other because it's just a menu. It's not a filter, even though it's in this kind of filters list. See, I just did an Algolia video with James Quick on his streaming channel 2 weeks ago. A lot of good stuff happening. A lot of cool people in the dev space. We could show more. We could search for Algolia here. and select those. A lot of cool stuff. But you can also add other filters too. And so we could do a refinement list, and we could say tags and tags.
And this,
And you
by
can
the way,
see
is all being driven by widgets within our instance search libraries, right? So this is really kind of
exactly.
just showing off all the things that you could build yourself using instance search, but it's kind of giving a nice UI builder for building out a demo site to kind of get a feel for what it would look like.
Exactly. And like your UI is going to be different in what you actually produce in the future, because it's it's going to be unique to all of your needs. But in this case, it gets you kind of the proof of concept you need with no code. And so I just dragged and dropped the tags interface up, and now we can see there's a whole bunch of JavaScript in my YouTube developer ecosystem search here. And so I can find us all the JavaScript videos, and you can see by default it's already filtering our channels as well. So now we can see that Better Dev has 34 JavaScript videos. And then, instead of that, we could do, this is up here is now filtered by the Better Dev channel. So 34 JavaScript videos, Tailwind CSS. I know Chris Sev loves Tailwind. So here are all of his videos on Tailwind. So a lot of cool stuff. We can also customize the display of each of the items. So I could come in here and I could say, let's actually have the description come in, and it's going to automatically fit in there.
Can we get the favorite count too?
I wasn't gonna do favorite count. Favorite count actually ends up. I'm gonna do a label of view count.
That's
so now
good.
we can
That's
see
better.
how many views each video has. We could put a currency on it if we needed to. We do a lot of e-commerce, so that's kind of baked into this as well. Not clicking on you anymore. And then we could also showcase, a tag of some sort. I'm not going to do that right now. Let's just save this in. And now we automatically have those, and we can see how many views each one has. And I could select, we could do likes as well. Favorites is a weird functionality in YouTube, and literally of the 800 videos in here, none have any favorites.
Oh, wow.
Which is a little bit odd, but we could do, can I do multiple on here? We could do, what did I say? Likes.
Yeah. Or there was comment count. That was cool too. It's like, does that pick up okay?
It should.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a huge number or anything, but we can do that there. And then we could also, I haven't tried this yet, so demo gods be kind, but we could do a filter, a range slider.
Yeah.
And we could do that based on views, right?
Yeah.
So view count be on our views. We can give a minimum and a maximum. I think we need at least one of them. Let's put a minimum of one view. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think typically what it'll do is it'll find the lowest and highest value and set those to the minimum and max.
I can't save. Oh, it's telling me something very important here. This view count is not a facet. So we need to mark it as something for faceting, and that's going to jump us right into our configuration in the attributes for faceting section, facets. And we can go ahead and add that as a facetable attribute. And then we'll go ahead and review and save that. And then we'll pop back over to the UI, which automatically was saving for us along the way. And we can go edit that again. So we can add a filter. Gotta go through those steps again, unfortunately, but you take what you can get.
And this slider, this is definitely a place where the currency comes in handy. I was playing with we have a wine data set, and so I built a slider that was just the price of the wine, right? Trying to find that sweet $12 bottle. And so putting a currency on that made sense. Yeah, see, so that puts it goes whatever your max was.
Which is, I don't think the maximum of our count. It might be a maximum integer. Let's do something simple. This is what happens when I don't test things before I try to do it.
How confident are we that view count's an integer and not a string?
I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
confident.
What's
going on.
Let's take a look at that real fast. Let's see. I should look into my scraper for that. This will be in our browse.
Let's look at one.
View count is a string.
It's a string.
Okay, yeah, so that's
good to know.
Yeah,
these are
all these integers. Yeah.
Cool. So
0.
something to consider when you're importing your data.
Good data is the foundation of good search.
Yes.
Yeah, so that blew up a little bit, but each of these
It's still
could
super cool. I
be,
mean, I love the fact that we've got that the menuing was not something that I'd done before, where you can kind of treat them as
yeah,
categories. So you think about that, like if you're building out this UI, you'd probably build those out as like tabs or something, right?
yeah,
Or potentially like pages for discovery.
yeah, absolutely. And like honestly, like this interface works fine too. And again, it's great that
Mhm.
you could actually build out an entire page around this too, because it's searchable. And so like
I
this
feel
could
like
be its own page.
I feel like it wasn't. This is in the spoiler alert. The news here isn't great, but it wasn't even a week into this launching that we saw the first discourse post that was just like, "How can I just export this? Like, I just want
Yeah,
this."
yeah,
And that's not a feature of this. This is definitely for like playing with your data, getting a feel for your data, getting a feel for the art of the possible.
mhm.
Um, but it's unfortunately not a no code solution to build your UI at this point. So
But
you
it
can.
does have this lovely little
Mhm.
copy link functionality. And I think, let me, before I share this,
Yep.
let's open it incognito just to make sure I'm not lying here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
So
this just
go ahead.
works.
Yeah. If you're a product manager and you want to like kind of wireframe this out and get everyone an idea of why Algolia should be integrated into your site, this is a good use case for that. If you're a developer just trying to get an understanding of like the widgets libraries that we provide,
Mhm.
lots of great use cases for using this.
Yep. And again, you can like again to like sell this internally, you could add your company logo in here. You can do all sorts of little things to make it really feel like you did a whole bunch of work on this. Oh, this is just a proof of concept. It took me like 3 days to do. I'm not going to tell anyone, right? Um, but yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can do. Different display preferences, like we said. There's stuff around images that you can change out.
Yeah.
We could turn off images if we want to, but this is a very visual based example.
I think you can change that
Um,
background in the Hero bar there too. There's like
yep,
a
you
yep.
absolutely can. There's also you can change the placeholder. You can change a whole bunch of stuff. It's
Mhm.
super handy. You can also set color. Um, see what happens. Let's just do it on the fly. Save. Hmm.
Nice. There you go.
I can't remember Algolia Blue's value, but there we go. That's worse now. I made it worse. You're welcome. Um,
It's neutral. It's very neutral.
yeah, yeah. What makes a man turn neutral? Um, anyway, pop culture reference. You're welcome.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been some updates to the UI builder. It's a little bit more streamlined. There's more options available in terms of how that like faceting and filtering works,
Yeah.
and it's just a really slick portion again to get a really quick proof of concept out the door. And I love that we're spending some time making that process a little bit smoother even than it was before.
Oh, agreed. Hey, Brian, this was fun.
This is a good one. I like it.
We should do this
Um,
again next week.
we should do this again next week. In fact, what's today's date? Today's the 23rd. So next week, if we do this, it can be a birthday celebration because it's my birthday on Tuesday next week.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Yeah.
So everyone come and wish Brian a happy birthday on November 30th.
Presents are optional, but encouraged.
Yeah. What is the statement? Your presence is present enough.
Ooh, nice. Oh, and we're
Yeah.
a French company, so RSVP even makes more sense, right?
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
a French phrase technically. Um,
Absolutely. But I've got some ideas. I think we're gonna have some interesting content to share from ourselves next
yeah.
week. But let us know if there's anything in particular that you want to drill into. I still have this post-it note on the side of my desk around sort of granular faceting. There was a couple of questions
Mm,
around that I wanted to drill into at some point, but we'll get
absolutely.
to it. We get to it. We got a lot
Yeah.
to talk about.
A lot of good things coming, and we'll keep an eye out on all the things that are happening in both the Algolia ecosystem as a company, but also what's happening in the community. So if you are making content in the community, do let us know, and we'll share it on these streams as well. We want to make sure that we lift those folks up to showcase all the cool stuff that's happening there.
Absolutely. Come see us here. See us on Twitter. Come to the Algolia discourse. We hang out there. We answer some questions there.
Yep,
We'd love to see cool things you're building there. It's always nice
true.
to answer your questions, but it's even better to just be able to like applaud your amazing work. So,
I do like the applaud emoji. It's a good emoji. So
mhm. Absolutely.
All right, y'all. Well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with us. Again, follow us on Twitter, both our personal accounts for questions, but also the Algolia account at Algolia, as well as at BRob and at Chuck M. And we'll see you next week for some more dev chat.
All right. Bye, Bryan.
Bye.